better if you didn't.
I'm with you.
Eugene.
All right. So
Probably better if you didn't.
Oh, Gene.
I'm with you.
Are you having a bad hair day?
There. I always have a bad hair day. No hair to be bad.
all right. So
Probably better if you didn't.
Oh, Gene.
I'm with you.
all
Are
right.
you having a bad hair day?
There. I always have a bad hair day. No hair to be bad.
Uh,
Probably better if you didn't.
Oh, Gene.
I'm with you.
All right. So it is, our stream is going. Oh, Kendra, we got one more. Kendra is logging in or joining now, so it'll be a second for her voice to come on. And I am going to mute everyone right now, so we're not having feedback issues. But when you are ready to talk, make sure you unmute yourself. And again, just a reminder, it is being streamed on live on YouTube right now. And so there is nobody waiting in our waiting room. So go ahead, Denise, whenever you are ready.
Okay. Thank you, everybody, for coming to the September 29th Administrative Council meeting. We'll start with opening prayer. Andrew?
Yes, let us pray. Oh God, our help in ages past, our hope for years to come, our shelter from the stormy blast, and our eternal home. Let the words of our mouth and the meditation of our hearts be acceptable into your sight, O Lord, our strength and Redeemer. Amen.
Thank you, Andrew. Okay, our next topic on the agenda is a reading of the previous minutes. That would have been included in your packet that was emailed to you all. If there aren't any changes or corrections, I would entertain a motion to approve those minutes as presented in the packet.
I'll move we approve the minutes.
Okay, Lee Mueller has moved. We approve the minutes. Is there a second?
Yeah, I'll second it.
Second. Connie Maury seconded. Connie,
No,
I'm sorry,
Connie
Hoffman.
Hoffman.
Sorry.
That's
Okay.
okay.
It's been moved and seconded that the minutes be approved as presented in the packet. All in favor? Aye.
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 Opposed? Okay, motion carries unanimously. Number 3 on our agenda is a pastor's report, so I'll turn it over to you, Andrew.
All right, I am pulling it up. Give me a second. I apologize. Okay. All right, before I begin my pastor's report for our council meeting, I would like to first thank and commend each and every one of you on the council for your dedication and hard work through this pandemic. Many on the outside of our council really don't understand the immense pressure that we have faced during this unprecedented time. We have met during this time of pandemic 21 times, consisting of over 50 hours, and countless hours of reading emails, correspondences, replying to said correspondences, phone calls, and text messages, ensuring the safety and welfare of our community of faith that God has given us charge over. And all this, I don't know, in all this, I know that sometimes we aren't truly understood in the gaps of the reality that we've had to deal with, and while still maintaining the health and safety of our own individual families. I sincerely want to thank you from the bottom of my heart, and it has been an honor and privilege working alongside each and every one of you during this time. No one would have guessed last October and November when I was asking you to be a part of the leadership of the church, that this magnitude of stress would have hit us. And you could have easily resigned your positions and said that this is too much, and this is not what you were signing up to do. But you stuck by your clarion call to be disciples of Christ in the call to leadership. For many, we know that there has been confusion this past probably month and a half, where we have not had an open church to in-person worship. But I think that we have answered the call to be the disciples of, with our hands and our feet and our actions in new ways during this time. Has it been what we wanted it to be or desired it to be or what it used to be? Absolutely not. But we have done our best during this time to continue to be a witness to the love of God and spread the gospel of good news to the world. Yes, God has called us in this season of change and this time, and it has not always been, and change is not always worse, but sometimes gives us a new way of doing ministry. For those that are viewing the stream and to you, the council, let me recall to mind all the things we have done as a church during this pandemic. The Hiawatha First Church community has been able to recognize our mothers during Mother's Day holiday and hand-delivered roses to all of our mothers in our community. During the Easter holiday, we celebrated the risen Christ by delivering Easter eggs to homes with our children and having modified Easter egg hunts in their yards of the members instead of at the church building. We were still able to recognize the fathers of our community during Father's Day with tributes from our community members, thanking the fathers for answering their biblical call as men. Our Sunday school continued to meet during the pandemic and offered lessons virtually and handouts to keep the kids up to date with lessons for their own discipleship. During the summer, the Hiawatha First sponsored every away game meal for the Bravos organization baseball team that was prepared, cooked, and paid for by my wife and myself, so that the young men from around the world could feel loved and appreciated and know there is a community that supported their God-given talents. We've held Bible studies and book studies and offered it to many people to have a place of still continued growth during this time. We have held bedtime Bible stories for our children so that they are still getting a biblical lesson each day from the church. Since this pandemic, we have never missed a week that we didn't offer a service either via virtual or drive-in for our community, even though we were not already not set up prior to the pandemic to even minister in that way. The skills of the volunteers that worked, traveled, and learned to ensure we still offered some form of worship should be noted. Natalie Hackler, Don, Nye, and myself from the beginning have done this all we could to make some form of worship happen for those who wanted to take advantage of this opportunity. As you can see, the church has never been closed. We have remained active during this time, and we should celebrate this as a church. But I must confess that this meeting is not like most of our meetings we've held this past 7 months. We do know that there has been some growing tensions and thoughts that have been voiced to many of us. We're streaming this meeting so others can see, so that we can be transparent and let our decisions be known and see the wisdom that we have been using to govern this community of faith. This past 2 weeks have been one of the most filled with stress and tension for most of us, especially for our administrative chair, Denise Woolney, and our SBRC chair, Lee Mueller, fielding the many phone calls, text messages, and emails from members. I, for one, have shared in that myself, that I have been inundated by constant communications to the point where I've been on the phone from 8 a.m. all the way until 11 o'clock p.m. The Book of Discipline makes this clear to you, Administrative Council, paragraph 252, that the Church Council shall provide for planning and implementing a program of nurture, outreach, witnesses, and resources in the local church. It shall also provide the administration of its organization and temporal life. The Church Council shall be amenable to and function as the administrative agency of the Charge Conference. The administration and the temporal life of the church is what we're here to focus on today. We are going to discuss many issues that have caused us to field phone calls. The question isn't can we, it should be should we or should we not make these decisions. And either way, some people will find comfort in our decisions while some people will be disappointed. But regardless of this, we have to use our wisdom from our own perspectives, but primarily from God on what is the moral thing to do. This is not as simple as many portray in our own times. We are not a business. We are not a company. We are the church. And our decisions that we make tonight has to resemble Jesus Christ and his teachings. It must resemble the actions that Jesus would make if he was sitting here on this Zoom call right now. Regardless of alliances and friendships, Jesus Christ must be seen at the conclusion of this meeting. As I conclude my report, I ask you members to recall a few key scriptures as we consider these decisions as we make today. The book of Micah in the Old Testament was directed chiefly towards Jerusalem, the chosen nation, the people that God had saved from slavery. But the chosen nation had fallen so far away from the moral rule of law that God had instructed. God sent Micah to rebuke the people of Judah for their dishonesty, idolatry, and for not following God's command in their life. In response to God's rebuke, the chosen nation asked this question in Micah 6:8. What is good, and what does God require of us? The prophet Micah's response was simply to do justly and to love kindness and to walk humbly with God. The decisions we make today must be rooted in this: to do justly, to love kindness, and to walk humbly with God. And the last scripture was from this past Sunday's sermon. In the midst of the storm, the disciples were going crazy because the boat was being rocked. Jesus had to tell them that they needed to have peace and the storms and the chaos would be still. It is no shock to us that in our community, we are dealing with a mixed emotions. We have hypersensitivity, hypervigilance, and hyper-anxiousness, and that has made all of our lives different. It has made our jobs and making decisions almost filled with angst, and instead sometimes cause us to question the logic to facts and data. But we must be intentional of how God is calling us and how Jesus will lead in this time. Jesus Christ has already died for the church. We don't need to feel the pressure because our boats are being rocked by the chaos of voices. I ask that you ask yourself in this meeting, if Jesus was in this meeting, what would he say? And what would he make as their choice? Because if we do, regardless of what others are saying or thinking we should do, we must remain true to the discipleship we are embodying in this time. And that truly is Jesus Christ.
Okay, thank you, Andrew. Next on our agenda is the preschool/remote learning usage of the church. It's an open dialogue. I might just start out by summarizing that the school had contacted us and wanted to be able to use the parish hall in the beginning is what they wanted. The parish hall for the elementary students of high school and middle school teachers that are going to have to go back to school Wednesday. And this would allow for teachers, other teachers to supervise them. They could walk back to the elementary school for lunch, and it was a good situation. There was some discussion about that because the preschool was closed because they were going by the school schedule. So through all this over the weekend and on Monday, we spent a lot of time reviewing it. I sent out a couple emails asking for a vote on this to administrative council. And the vote was, yes, we should allow the school. I believe it was it 22 children, I believe, I don't have it in front of me, and 7 adults to be able to use it. However, we decided that they should use it upstairs, only have access to the front door of the church, and not have any access to the elevator, and that the school, of course, would provide supervision, cleaning, and liability insurance. So that has already been decided that we do that through a vote of administrative council on Monday. So I'll just open up if there's any discussion about that right now.
Before we open it up, at 4 o'clock, I received a call from Paul Carver, the principal of the elementary school. And they have approximately 15 kids and will not need our facility at this time, but possibly will need it later on. For the numbers, they said they're going to use the library and the gym, but he is very thankful that we are an option to be used later on. So that was a message I received at 4 o'clock today.
So did he say why they chose the library and the gym? You mean the library and the gym in the middle school? I mean the elementary school?
In the elementary school.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. All right. So I guess that is a moot point. Okay. So then one of the other things we talked about was a preschool, and how if they were going to go ahead and continue to be open. You know, traditionally what the preschool had done was they followed the USD 415's schedule. And this is unprecedented times because we've got 2 schools open and 1 closed. So I think the preschool did a vote, the board, and decided that they wanted to be open at this time. So if there's open dialogue about that, let's have some comments or discussion. Anybody?
I mean, I'll just tell you, I'm a preschool board member. We had a vote the other night to hopefully resume September 30th. And it was a vote when it all passed. Like you said, Denise, we try to follow USD 415 schedule to the best of, our ability and their ability. But like you said, it's unprecedented time. We discussed at the beginning of the year that should USD 415 go remote, we would not hold in-person classes. And so that is why, we didn't. And then I think with ad council and everything like that, we obviously never discussed the situation of 2 buildings being open and 1 being closed. So, I mean, it's my thought as a parent and as a board member that Christy and Sarah have done a great job of maintaining a safe learning environment for the little children, and they will continue to do so. And so it would be my, hope that ad council allows Happy Days to open back up.
The board, if I can interject this, the preschool board ultimately has a control over the preschool, but admin council has a final say on things if we choose to. So.
I mean,
I think if the preschool has voted to go back in on Wednesday, that we should honor that decision and support them in their efforts to try and keep those kids in class.
yeah, I agree. I don't see why we wouldn't let them do that. So I'm agreeable with letting them come in to the church.
I agree with that myself too.
Well, I guess I agree as well. I am a little confused though. I thought we were just going to allow the preschool board to make the decision. We don't really have to vote on this, do we? I mean, we've already said that we can allow, we're going to allow the preschool board to make their own decision, correct?
Right. We don't have to, through the emails that I sent, we don't have to vote on it as long as if we have a discussion, everybody's in agreement to do it. We don't, if there's some conflict, we would need to, but if everybody's in agreement, we can just go on to the next topic unless someone wants to bring up something about this.
We're in agreement that it should go ahead and go that way.
Elizabeth, has there been any more discussion? Say USD decides to close 2 buildings, keep 1 open. I mean, or is it just, you just play that by ear, like everything? I mean, really?
Yeah, I really think we're trying to play it by ear. I mean, like we've I think we even maybe even tossed around the idea of staying open last week, but because it was a staffing issue, it was not necessarily like an outbreak like among the students. But then I think there was an email sent that was like, well, latchkey and preschool are closed. So I think we felt like we needed to honor what ad council, and I think Denise, you sent the email. I felt like we needed to honor that, and so that's why we shut down. But like you said, if there's 2 buildings closed and 1 open, I mean, I think if it was safe, I think our thinking would be if it was safe and there was not an outbreak among like our specific preschool students, I really think we would try to stay open and maintain that learning environment for the kids, because I think it's hard. I mean, like Jax is only, he's been there 5 times and now we're shut for 2 times, and and I understand, and it's just, I think parents really want their kids to go, and I think if we can maintain that safe learning environment, that we would really try hard to maintain that, as long as it was approved and everything like that.
Elizabeth, how does?
I'd like to second what Elizabeth is saying. I'm sorry, I'm at a volleyball game, but I have been listening, and everything she said is exactly correct as for our board meetings.
And that's Heather Mays, right?
Yes, it is.
Okay, thank you.
I would defer to the preschool board. I mean, they're the closest to the situation and have the most recent information. So whatever they're willing to do, I'm willing.
And Elizabeth, I apologize if that was part of a different email, but I think we just assumed it was closed because they'd always gone by the schools.
Yeah,
That
and
was before both of them were open.
yes, that's this, and I think, and that's correct. I think that was a safe assumption. I just think that it was like, once we started to, once it came out that it was maybe more staffing issue, and having Heather on the board as a teacher has really helped, knowing that like, okay, that was maybe more of a staffing issue than this. So, maybe we could look at it. But I mean, ultimately, we're going to respect everything that, you guys decide and stuff like that. But we would really strive to keep the kids in there.
I think that's where a lot of the initial confusion came from, was the communication from the USD 415 didn't necessarily spell out it was a staffing issue. And I really think that was the initial cause of a lot of confusion.
I would agree with that.
Yeah, I just have a question. Since we had a motion in the prior meetings that we would follow what the school did with preschool, do we need to have a motion to rescind that, or are we okay just to go ahead at this point?
Well, they are doing what the school's doing for 2 of the 3 schools.
Mhm. Well, that's
I
what I'm
don't
saying,
know.
though.
I
don't care as long as
we could entertain a motion, just so it's on the record, that we, agree with opening or agree with going along with the preschool board's recommendations for their schedule. That's up to you guys.
I'll make a motion that we follow the preschool scheduling as to their leadership and their choice.
And I'll second that if I'm allowed to.
Okay, a motion. You are.
Yeah. that's what
We have a
the latest
motion
information is,
that,
apparently. Dave is smiling there too.
The 2 people who have always thought that they didn't have a vote now have a vote. There we go.
They're making motions.
they'll be out of control now. Okay, I'm jumping in.
I haven't
Okay,
even
there's
got on a
motion
roll
the
yet.
table. Oh, Lord.
Okay,
There's a motion on.
so for purposes of the minutes, he's making a motion that ad council follow the recommendation of the Happy Days board, or what exactly is that what you're saying, Dave?
For their
That's what-
for their
scheduling.
schedule. Yeah.
Okay.
So that motion has been made by Dave Hoffman and seconded by Jean Hillier. Is there any further discussion on that? Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, motion carries unanimously. Okay, Andrew, did you want to talk about conference recommendations
So
first, or did you want to talk about
Yeah,
plans for COVID-19
we'll
warnings?
start with the conference stuff. So in your packets, and I sent out a bunch of things yesterday, and then I don't know, I didn't see any responses to today. I did send out with one of the things the conference is doing is there are many churches that are in locations that are quote unquote community spread by the health department. And so in your packet, you will see a notice from our health department of the increase of COVID cases by 50%. And we are now classified as a community spread area. So in one of your packets yesterday, you have the health department's notice where it tells us to do what we can to stop the spread, wash hands, wear masks, social distance, but it also says avoid groups and crowds. And after consultating with our DS yesterday, because I am one of several of her churches, she asked about what we were doing to prevent and to protect and to do our best as Methodists to do no harm. She sent an email last night as I was sleeping, and I sent that to everyone for everyone to review this morning. So those that is the conference recommendation. She believes that all of the churches that are in community spread areas should not be gathering for in-person worship. I have tried to call the DS. She's on a tour right now of certain networks. She was in Hiawatha 2 weeks ago, and Dave and Jean were here to greet her, but she's in a different network today, so I haven't got clarification. I talked to Denise and to Lee earlier about that content of her letter. It says a recommendation, and I wanted to clarify, was that more of a mandate or a recommendation, but I have not gotten an answer, so I can't give you anything about that. The conference is working hard and diligently to protect our communities. We have, out of all the churches, we have about 50% of our churches that are back open in the Topeka Flint Hills district. And some of the larger churches, as I said last time, to comparable our size, Manhattan First, Topeka First, and all those other churches are back open. The majority of our churches are the smaller rural areas that only have 5 to 10 people, where they could act adequately and safely and are not in community spreads. So in your packet, you have that. You also have the registrations of people that have signed up for worship. Remember, that was the requirement we put to ensure for contact tracing. Those are the active as of last night when I sent them to you, of all the people that have signed up for worship. As you can see, there is 10 people scheduled for what would have been our October 1st or 4th service. And that's kind of consistent, and as well as the second service where there's only 3 people signed up for that second service. So reality is those are the registrations, and that's what we have to go by. Also in your packet was surveys. The surveys that we sent out, we had 35 completed surveys, and so you saw the responses. The only thing I did not attach for privacy, because it sounded like last meeting you didn't want to know who said what, I did not attach the names list that was up to the survey. So you have gotten everything from the surveys except for the names of those that completed it. Therefore, the question I present, or I think we need to decide, is the plans for worship. October 11th was after our email, was the new date for reopening. And I, as the pastor of this church, as we've talked about before, I have ultimate final authority, but I want us to come to some communication decision and a compromise so that we are taking in effect the voices of not only some people, but the voices of reason, logic, and what we need to do. I make no bones about it that I do not think this community, being a community spread, it was one thing and our normal COVID, but now that we've been labeled community spread, I am concerned that our actions have repercussions. But I am done. I need to hear from you guys, and I think God will be in us and talk to us, as I said, for us to make the biblical answer of what we need to do.
I am reading the letter here from the DS right now. I know you said you did not get a response from her if it's a mandate or a recommendation.
That's correct. I did not. I could text her again, and while you are talking, I could see if I can get a response.
Well, there is a line in there that says, as a conference, we encourage local congregations to follow the directions of the health departments. So encourage to me sounds like a recommendation rather than a mandate. It's how I read it.
And I'll refrain from saying too much just because I shouldn't. I would say that there is a line in that letter that is probably not entirely accurate, but I will leave it at that.
If you're talking about the wedding, I disagree. Not everyone did not have masks. There were some people that had masks. So yes, I do want that on the record. It was not a free for all, but
Yeah.
there has
I
been,
mean,
and we will talk about the wedding. That is on the agenda, but there was some concern that was voiced to Lee that were a great number of people that didn't have masks on. And if we would allow that many people to not have masks, why would we not allow people for worship with mask?
Well,
Am I
again,
correct?
I'll refrain from saying too much, but I will just say that there was no requirement or a mandate from the ad council or anybody within the church that masks were required. I will
That
leave
is
it at
correct.
that. I will leave it at that.
I have some real concerns because I think I've had several people talk to me that they want to be back in the church, that they miss it, and that they're going other places. They don't understand why we are not having church and others are. And I'm afraid we're going to be losing a lot of our membership if we don't have a plan to reopen and stick with it.
I agree.
And Paula, I agree. I think I said that back in June or July that I was afraid people would go other places. So I totally agree.
We have said that. That has been brought up several times.
Well, but it's happening. I mean, I think it's happening. And I know like Zion is meeting, and I'm just afraid that if we keep putting this off, that that we're going to reach a point of no return.
And
I can
unfortunately,
tell you, I texted the DS and she has read it. I have a read remark receipt, but she has not responded. So just to let you know, Lee. I'm sorry.
So we had said before that we were going to open on October 11th. And I don't know if anything has changed that at all. I haven't heard anything different that we weren't, except for this letter that Andrew has today that's a recommendation from the DS. I've only been in the Methodist Church for 20 years. If it's a recommendation from the DS, do we have to do it? If it's a mandate from the DS, do we have to do it? Someone that's been here as part of this church longer than I needs to respond to that because I don't know.
Well, if it's a direct mandate, yes, we have to follow it. If it's a recommendation, it's a recommendation. You could choose.
Okay, so the governor is issuing mandates and we're not following those. I'll just throw that out there.
That is true.
Can you guys hear me?
I know I made the motion at the last meeting that we go ahead and start, this Sunday, October 4th. And I agree with Paula, what she said, that if we don't get started again, we're going to lose because we've already lost some that are going someplace else and they may continue to go there and not come back. And again, I leave it up to each individual to make their own decision. I mean, I feel that the younger folks are really wanting to get back and the kids need to get back. Some of the older, including myself, probably will not be coming because of the social distancing, et cetera, and health issues. So, but I do feel overall, and I feel from the surveys we've gotten back, that I can just hear that undertone that we need to get back into the church. So I'm still in favor of meeting in church on October 11th, unless we have a mandate from the DS. And then I guess it's still questionable. Like Denise said, we have mandate from the governor, but we're not following that.
DS just responded. She said, it was intended to be support of the recommendation of the health department.
So not a mandate.
Okay,
I
can anybody
specifically
hear me?
said- I said, my board wants to know, is your letter a mandate or recommendation? And her exact words was, it was intended to be a support of the recommendation of the health department.
Can you ask her to respond to let us know if it's a mandate or recommendation? Because she didn't answer that.
Okay, go ahead. I think Jody or someone was talking. Yeah.
Yeah, this is Jody. I'm sorry. I'm not also at a volleyball game, and so it's really loud. So I'm hoping you guys can hear me. Can you hear me?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. Okay, so I'm going to put in my 2 cents and then I'll
Yes.
mute again so you don't have to listen to this screaming and yelling. Okay, so I would agree with the comments that Paula made and Marianne made. And I have struggled for a while with not reopening our church. And I know, and I'll speak for a lot of other young, am I still young? I don't know if I'm young, but I will speak for some other younger families that attend our church. And I can tell you that a number of those families, including myself, have gone to other churches to attend a church because we miss being in church. We miss being inside a church and worshiping inside of a church. And I know you don't have to be in a church to worship in a church. I mean, to worship. But that's something that we missed. And there have been several families that have done the same thing. I do feel like that if we don't provide that as an option, I think we will continue to lose young families in our church. I feel very disconnected to the church, more so than I ever have. And I think that is the voice of several other people that I've talked to. And a lot of that is completely out of our control. You know, COVID is out of our control and all the requirements and recommendations are out of our control. But, you know, without having Sunday school and without having in-person church and without having our choirs, and I think there's a huge disconnect right now. The other thing that I'll say is I represented the hospital this last week on a school board Zoom call. And boy, that was awful. And I've had so much feedback that's been pretty much awful. And the providers at the hospital voted 9-0 to reopen the middle school and the high school tomorrow. And that went against the county health department. That went against, let's be honest, all the administrators of the school. And that went against the school nurses. And that was really hard to do. But what I'm seeing, and I am frontline because I swab the patients at the hospital 2 to 3 times a week. And I'm frontline with that. And I'm seeing this illness frontline. I'm seeing the people that are sick with this. And it was still our recommendation to open up. I think some of the things, and again, I don't want to go to the school, but some of the things with the school is all the community saw is the school is closing. Let's all panic. Let's all freak out. And what the community didn't know at the time, and I think I did send out in an email, is at the time, there was only 2 positive students in the entire school district. And as far as I know right now, from my knowledge today, there still is only 2 positive students in our entire school district of 900 or 1,000 kids. There are still only a very small handful of positives staff, and those are still all in the elementary school. And so even though we have heard from, you know, that the school is closed, I think it's closing for reasons other than everybody has COVID. It's because everybody is in quarantine. So I wanted to throw that out. The other thing that we have found with the school board when serving on the committee with the school board is that the recommendations by the state have been very hard for us to follow because we are a small rural community and we are a smaller school district. And when you get 3 or 4 positives, you have a 50% increase in your number. And so it's really hard to, I mean, we can make numbers look however you want. You can make numbers look however you want. What we cannot deny is there is community spread. You cannot deny that. I agree with that. What you cannot deny is that the numbers have gone up. I agree with that as well. But just, I guess the only thing that I want to say is let's keep in mind, let's keep this all in perspective. As far as the numbers we're seeing and the fear factor, let's keep this all in perspective. And my vote is that we allow in-person sooner rather than later to keep our church together and to keep the younger members coming. And then I'll stop talking and I'm gonna mute. Thank you. If you have questions, I'm
Jody?
happy to hear it. Yes, yes.
I would agree. I would still like us to open up on October 11th. But could you explain a little bit more the disconnect between what your recommendation was, the hospital's recommendation was, and the Brown County Health Department? I don't understand that disconnect.
Okay, so are you referring to like why they voted to close and we voted to open? Is that what you mean?
Essentially, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So the reason that the providers voted to open was because in the middle school and the high school, there were no cases of COVID, none, 0. As far as students, there were no students that were positive in the middle school or the high school. And as far as I know, again, today, that continues to be the case. And we had 1 positive teacher in the middle school that had quarantined, and that individual is actually back at school now. And we had no other positive teachers in the middle school or the high school. And so we felt like it was a safe environment for our kids to go back and be in those buildings without having any positives. And so that was why we made the recommendation. And again, I want to reiterate, which I wish I could put this on every social media platform. This was not a Jody Twombly decision. This was a 9-0 Hiawatha Community Hospital provider decision, and it was a decision made by everybody, not just me.
Okay, so basically the health department then is just simply following the strict guidelines put forth by the state with really no flexible wiggle room for our local smaller community. Is that my understanding?
Yeah, so they are following the recommendation that they are handed down from KDHE, the Kansas Department of Health and Environment. They are following that. They also they get the numbers in, they see the numbers, they see an increase in the numbers. And when they see an increase in the numbers, then that they are required to notify the county through various forms of media that there has been an increase in the number of cases, just like they have to report the deaths. We had our 4th death in Brown County, I think yesterday. And so that's something they have to report as well. And so, you know, they have their criteria that they follow. And so that's why they made that recommendation. The other thing, and you know, I'm not here to debate coronavirus because that's a lose-lose situation. But the other thing that we're seeing a lot of is, and I'm not trying to minimize in any way the 4 individuals that have died of coronavirus. So I don't want to minimize that at all. But by far the majority of every patient that we see that has had coronavirus that we have tested has been minimally ill. In fact, several of them with maybe even no symptoms or very, very few symptoms, very mild symptoms. And that also was a reason that we felt like there was not a humongous risk to life and morbidity by allowing this age group to go back to school. Am I explaining that correctly, or am I rambling?
Yeah, no, that sounds good.
Jody, I have a question for you. And I know I come from a different perspective as I've lost 2 family members to COVID. My sister-in-law has COVID and my aunt is in the hospital for the 7th time with COVID.
Yeah.
I'm confused that if we can acknowledge that there is a community spread and there is an uptick, why would we, not we as a church, but why would we not follow the advice of the health department? I know, I mean, I say that not even as accusatory, because I do know there is people that are asking that question. I mean, if the numbers are showing there is an increase, why should we quote unquote ignore them? Am I saying that? And I don't want you to feel I'm attacking, because I'm even trying to figure that out for my own family. We are quarantined for the 5th time because all 6 of us have now had a COVID test today. So I don't know how do we reconcile with that tension?
That's a great question. If you find the answer, please let me know, because I'm telling you, the last 4 or 5 days have been pretty much hell for me. And I hate it. I hate it for my family. I hate it for for all the providers at the hospital, because we have met the wrath of a few people, a handful of people that are just very much opposed to it. And I don't know how to reconcile that. I mean, it was a tough decision for us to make that call. But what we're seeing are, we have 2 buildings that have no sick people in it, and we are struggling to find reason to not allow them to go back to school and learn on site. Now, I know anybody that's on this call that is currently homeschooling, which I have 3 at my house, and thank the good Lord, 2 of them are responsible and able to manage it themselves. But I've had to quit work and stay home. I've had to, I mean, I'm a single parent this time of year, and it's a huge challenge for anybody that is trying to homeschool their kids with the schools being closed. The other thing is that I feel like you cannot get the education that you're getting on site via remote learning. It's not the same. And any parent will tell you that's been struggling with this. And so again, the providers at the hospital felt like the best place to learn was in the building. We felt like it was safe in the building because there were no cases of staff or students in 2 of the buildings. And so we felt like it was safe for them to return. But having said that, we are not oblivious to the fact that it's eventually going to be in the high school or the middle school. It's not that we think that's not going to happen. We do think that eventually will happen. And if it gets to the point where it's no longer safe to be in school in those buildings, then I'm sure that we would revote and we would think perhaps differently.
And I understand that tension. I meant in terms of for us as a church, because we do have a susceptible number. If we look at the registration, there are older people,
Yes.
and even though they have a choice, I wonder the question about the morality of giving them that option to potentially spread it outside, bringing it from the outside into the church or continue to spread. So can you give insight why, other than I know, and I'm not oblivious, I do know that people are going elsewhere. And it saddens me on that, because I think, as you said, we know, as I said earlier, we've done a lot to minister in new ways. I mean, basically, we're asking to forsake the recommendation of the health department, and that tension of why, I mean, as a provider, what are the pros and cons of just saying we're going to, do something that we know is a potential risk?
So I guess the thing the thing is nothing is risk-free. Nothing that we do is risk-free. Driving down the road isn't risk-free. And I am very happy that we have the option at our church and at other churches that you can go to services remotely and you can watch on YouTube or Zoom or whatever at different congregations. And that is a great option for anybody that is of the age group that has the highest risk for this. And it's also a great option for somebody that would have comorbidities that would put them at greatest risk. And there is nothing that would sadden me more than if we had a member of our church that came to church and got COVID at our church and then had it that died or had lasting problems due to that would be awful. And I think we can what if to death. I mean, should we ever open again? When is COVID going to be over? I mean, if somebody could tell me that, then please tell me, because quite frankly, we should close forever because COVID is not going away anytime soon. And I wish it was. But when is it safe to open? When are we going to require vaccines at the door? And then if you've had your vaccine, then you can go to church. Because there is no light at the end of the tunnel. And trust me, I have looked for that light for a long time. Every time I put that N95 on and go stick swabs up people's noses, I think, when is this ever going to end? And when is life going to go back to normal? And I don't think anybody has an answer to that. If you want to play it safe and you want to make sure that for liability purposes, that nobody's going to sue the church or that nobody is going to get injured or get coronavirus, then, I think we stay closed. If you want to play it safe, you follow the requirement of the health department, and that's going to keep you from having anybody come, get the virus. But how long can we do that is my question. How long can we just keep saying there's a risk, there's a risk, there's a risk? Because there is going to be a risk, I promise you, for a long time. And as much as I'd love to say that everybody thinks the election's going to make this go away, we all know that's not true. And so I don't know, Andrew, I'm mumbling here, but
No, I thank you. You actually gave a great perspective. Thank you, Jody.
I mean, it's definitely difficult because there are other churches that are open, and that makes our position difficult because of that. People are moving on to different churches, but I feel like if the other churches, if we haven't had an indication that once school gets back in October 11th, there's other churches closing, then I feel like we need to allow our members to come in too. I mean, and has anybody heard if other churches have thought about, with now this new information coming out, are other
Yes.
churches going to be closing?
I have met with Pastor Blake. Was it yesterday or Tuesday? What's today? It's today, Tuesday. So yesterday, Monday, Pastor Blake. They've only been open for 3 weeks. They had an opening worship of 85, which normally they have 200. Their second week it dropped to 45, and this past Sunday was 20. So they are even considering closing. And he actually said that he could see that all churches are probably going to be closed by middle of November, because we know that with the winter time, the virus and the outbreak is going to be greater. So I have talked to Pastor Blake, who's the comparable church to our sides, besides the Catholic Church, and the priest makes all the decisions there. So, but in our situation, that is what he had said to me.
Can I add something? I think if we open and we do it safely, where we require masks, we have hand sanitizer, we even take temperatures at the door, we don't have singing at this point. And Andrew, if you're afraid or you have reason to be, if you've got people that that have died from this, if we would put like a plexiglass screen around you up front, and have you not have contact with anybody and make it so you feel safe, I think that people are adults, and I don't care if they're 90 or 20, they have the right to make that decision. We can't make a decision for a 90-year-old. They know exactly what they're doing. And they may say, I want to take that risk because it's more important to me to be close to God in this community, in this church, than it is for me to be super safe and isolated at home. So I think that we need to reopen on the 11th as we planned, with safety precautions in place. And the part about suing, I kind of did a little research on that. And the churches that were getting sued were the ones that just opened with no precautions. So it's kind of hard to tie that, I would think, in a lawsuit to the health department when the county isn't even following their own health department's recommendations fully. The city isn't fully, and the whole state isn't with the governor's mandate. Which brings me to the question, did you get an answer from the DS on whether that was a mandate or recommendation?
Yes, I said they would like a definitive answer. Is this a mandate or a recommendation? She said, I am going off of what the county health officer has asked our churches, and that is the conference decision of making it safe for community spread. I'm not sure if I can definitively say right now that is a mandate without conferring with the bishop. But I can tell you what we are saying to all churches that are in similar situations. And I just finally said, okay, thanks. Because she's not going to answer, is this a mandate or a recommendation?
You're not going to get a yes or no answer out of that. They're just,
It's not a mandate. It's not a mandate reading it. It's
Pastor,
it's an encouragement.
Yes, Dave?
There's just something I would like to mention. I'm not saying it has, or I'm not saying I don't know how I'm meaning this exactly. One of my concerns is already, you showed us on those lists how few people are signing up. Is it even possible that we would only have one service to help cut down on the cleaning and some of those issues?
I
Just
agree.
have one service each Sunday instead of having two?
I'll tell you, I've had a few people tell me that they refuse to sign up for church.
See, then that's concerning. If we put these
Yeah,
requirements
yeah,
out and
yeah.
people are going to refuse to follow it, that tells me that we're not even going to have a safe environment. I mean, that in itself.
No,
mean,
I don't think that's it at all, Andrew. I don't think that's it at all. I think that people want the church open and they want it to be their decision whether or not they come in the building. It doesn't really have to do with following rules. They just feel like that they don't know from Sunday to Sunday what they're going to be doing, what's going to be happening. That it really does not have to do with following rules. They just didn't like the thought that they have to sign up a month in advance whether or not they can go to church.
They could sign up the week of. No one said. I
Well-
just put up the month so we had it, so I don't have to do it every week and save time for me and Darletta having to correlate.
Well, and I understand that. And I think that a lot of people will maybe sign up the week before, the Saturday before, or even the Sunday morning of church. That I don't think you can go off of not many have signed up for church being an indication of how many are actually going to show up.
I first off, I never said that. Dave was asking, because of those numbers we have, can we go to one service?
What I was asking.
That's what he was asking. No one said that. That's no. I think we need to clarify that.
Can we save the number of services for another discussion? I
Sure.
think I'd like to call the question here, and I would like to make a motion that we go ahead and open back up for in-person services on October 11th.
I agree with that.
Okay, so there's a motion made that we open up on October 11th for in-person services. Do we have a second?
I second.
it. Sorry. go
Okay.
ahead.
So, Connie or Kendra?
No, that was Mary Ann and
Mary Ann. There we go, Mary Ann. Okay, so it's
she's
been,
in the dark.
motion is made by Lee Mueller, seconded by Mary Ann. Is there any further discussion? Okay, all in favor? Aye.
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 All opposed? Okay, so it passed unanimously by the Administrative Council that we open again for in-service worship on October 11th. So probably what we need to discuss next would be the parameters of that, the safety parameters and the numbers. You know, if we want to limit that, so say 100 people want to come, do we have someone at the door counting and cut off at 50, or, you know, those are the sort of things we probably need to discuss.
Why are we changing the parameters that we already set at the last meeting?
Okay, what were those parameters?
It was the mask.
Remind us all again.
The mask, the social distance, the temperature check, and they have to register for contact tracing purposes.
Right.
That's what we said at the last meeting.
I believe
Yeah,
the-
and I see no reason to change that.
Okay, so is the registration ahead of time or just at the door?
We had both options, right?
Yeah, I mean, if we have availability, so let's say right now there's only 10 for that first service. Let's say this Sunday we would have met, and there's only 10 signed up. If 40 people walk up to the door, we would still take them. But if we were at 50, no, we can't take them after that. They would have to come to the next service. I think that was the convenience of pre-registration.
Yeah.
Because instead of
Yeah,
showing up at the door,
I like the pre-registration myself, even though I know it's a hassle, because you start turning people away at the door and you talk about unhappy.
yeah,
They've taken a bath, they've put on their best clothes, they've come for church and you can't come in. Talk about mad.
yeah.
Gee, that's my weekly bath.
It's the
Yeah.
There you go.
Now, Elizabeth, you were saying something and you got cut off, so I want to make sure.
Oh, I just, from looking at the previous notes, I think the motion at the last meeting was made by Marianne to follow, and let me just pull up the notes real fast. I think it was to follow
the guidelines for the CDC.
follow the CDC
Yeah.
guidelines for communities of faith, including mask wearing, social distancing. That's what the motion was made, and that's what I assume you mean by those are the parameters we set. Is that
Yeah.
what? Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. I just brought it up because I wanted to make sure we were all clear on it. So,
I think we should follow those.
yeah.
Absolutely.
I asked the question last time and we kind of hem-hawed around it a little bit. If someone comes in the church and refuses to wear a mask, what are we going to do? Because that's a valid question.
It's not against the law.
It is our private property. And we can make whatever mandate we have for our building. So just as we've been talking about, we want to do this safely, but if someone who is watching this right now decides they're going to come in and not wear a mask, what's the point of having these requirements?
I might add, I was at Walmart today and wearing my mask, and I saw several people without wearing masks, and I kind of rolled my eyes at the lady at the front door, and she said, "There's nothing we can do." If someone wants to come in and make a statement by not wearing a mask, I don't know how you can say they can't come in.
I had the same
Well-
experience, Paul, at the last football game. You know, it was required, you had to have a mask to get in the
Mhm.
gate. But then I saw a number of people
Taking them
inside.
off.
Yeah, that's what
Yeah.
they do at Walmart. They walk in with it and then they
Right.
take it off.
Oh, these
I know
people
that's
didn't
what
even,
happened.
they didn't walk in with them. They were making a statement, and the conversation, I was right behind them, I was listening. They were making a point that they weren't gonna wear them. But I think that you could make a scenario for every bad thing that could happen, but I don't
Can
think
I
that we'll
say
have
something
that.
too?
I don't think that'll happen.
If you're risking my life, I mean, that's kind of what we said, that, we're doing this to keep people safe. We have to have these safety measures. We can't
So-
not just publicly say, well, if you don't want to, don't do it. I mean, that totally goes against what we've been saying.
Can I
So
say something?
So one of the things we did at the hospital, and I mean, we also require people to wear masks. And one of the things that has happened is they wear the mask to get in, you get into the room to see them, and their mask is off. And so if it's something that I'm uncomfortable with, and I think that we need to, that I don't want to be around someone that doesn't have a mask on, then I just excuse myself. And if I can't distance myself 6 feet from a person that doesn't have a mask on and I'm concerned about it, then I will leave the room. And I mean, that is an option. If we have somebody that comes that doesn't wear a mask, then we can be 6 feet away from them. You can move yourself to be 6 feet away from them so that you're socially distanced from them. Or you can leave the situation and get away from them. We have a big church, and we would still be able to be in person worshiping if there was somebody there that chose not to wear a mask. That's what we did at the hospital.
Or maybe we could send them to the nursery. They can listen in there.
I mean, I think it's private property, and I believe you can set your own rules on your own private property. So,
okay. So here's.
Well, I think we need to make clear to the congregation that the reopening is subject to these rules. And if we are open, say, a couple of weeks and there are a bunch of people not following the rules, you close again.
And actually, there has been churches that have done that when people weren't following the
And if
rules.
people aren't following the
actually shut
rules,
down.
you just shut down again.
That's exactly right.
And I want to tell you, at Maple Heights, the doctors, we've just let them back in a few weeks ago. If we have a repair person in here, we have very few, but if it's an emergency, everybody wears scrubs. They wear our masks. They take a COVID test out front, even the doctors, and they're not coming in the door. It's private property. I've got 60 elders I'm going to protect here. And I don't care if you whine and throw a fit at the door, get out. I don't care. I had a guy throw a fit, his ice machine, he came to fix the ice machine. He refused to take a COVID test. I said, fine, we'll get another company. So I look at it a different way than I'm like you, Elizabeth. It's private property. We've asked them to wear a mask. The administrative council has approved this, it's recommended by the governor, by the county, leave if you don't have on a mask.
Okay, I agree with all that. Maybe Andrew's question was, or at least maybe my question is, what if they do enter, have a mask on, in the middle of the service, they pull it off? I mean, does an usher ask them to leave?
Ask them to put it back up. Maybe an usher asked them to put it back up.
That's what I was just gonna say. If we had the usher just say something to them and.
Oh, your mask slipped. Oops.
Denise, you're on usher duty.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say, Denise. Yeah, that's what I was just gonna say.
I can't
Good luck with usher sign-ups.
I can't go into crowds. I would love to I do it here all the time. They have it. If somebody has it slipped down under their nose, I'm like, get the mask up. I've got a lot of experience at it.
Yes, you do.
So they've learned. Kendra knows.
I always keep mine up.
You keep yours up, but there's a few people I've had a thump on the head.
Yeah,
I do like what Jean and Paula did say. If people can't follow the rules, I mean, I do think we need to make the congregation known. If and maybe for me, we are making a big risk opening the church when we know we're in community spread. If they do not follow the rules, we'll just shut it down again.
I think you have a choice.
Yeah. Because at the end of the day, we are charged with the safety of our community. And I'm not going to be these people that you see on these viral videos yelling at people. And I'm not going through that. I'm just not going to.
If somebody takes their mask off halfway through the service, I don't think you confront them.
No, obviously not. No.
But you take that, if that happens for, 2 or 3 Sundays in a row, then I say, hey, there are 10% of our people that aren't following the rules. We got to shut down again. I mean, I don't know how else you handle it.
Or you mentioned it at the beginning of the next service. Say, last service, we had a couple people without masks. I want to remind you, we have to have those on or we're not going to be able to stay open.
Yeah.
Now, what I did is I do have a bunch of disposable masks available. So just in case someone comes to the door and they say, oh, I left my mask at home, we do have them available. So I'm not going to turn anyone down that doesn't. The question would be if they refuse to. So I'm going to make sure all the extras are there. So that's not an excuse. So I did just get a message from the DS. So you guys can keep talking. Let me read it and figure out what she's saying now.
So we can put a sign up at the front
Children.
door too, that says, mask required, and put those signs throughout the,
They're like, no shirt, no shoes, no service.
Yeah.
You know?
Right.
I
Those
really
signs all
don't
the
think
time.
that we will have an issue with people. I really don't.
Yeah, I don't.
I don't
think so.
either.
I think that they'll just be glad that they're back in the church and they'll do whatever is required of them. And I think we have to give them the benefit of the doubt. And if there's an issue, then we address it, at a
Yeah.
later time. But for now, I think we have got to open up the church. We just have to.
Are we requiring children like under 10 to wear masks?
No, I think when we put out the policy, when I sent out the plans for reopening, it was anyone over the age of 10.
Okay.
Would have to. Even though at that time we weren't even dealing with school, because I was thinking it'd be hard for a kid to wear a mask, but I guess they're
You
wearing
know,
it.
I
think
have a
they're
little,
very adaptable. I think they.
my perspective was a little different. I've been noticing that since the kids have been wearing masks in school, even the first and second graders, a lot of them, they've already accepted it. It's okay.
Well, the
you know,
preschool, I could tell you, Christy, they love to bring the different masks to show off, hey, I've got Snoopy, or I've got,
Yeah.
I
trees.
mean, Jax picks his outfit and his mask every day before preschool.
So do we want to say, do we want to say kids have to wear them? I mean, kids have been known to get COVID. I mean,
I just can't guarantee like my 2-year-old or somebody younger
Yeah.
than a preschool child
I was
would
gonna
be wearing
say-
a mask.
No, I don't think you require it, but I don't think that it's,
I don't think there's anything
Nice.
wrong.
I don't think, well, I guess I'm saying, I don't think they'll mind. If they don't mind wearing it at school, they won't mind wearing it at church. If they don't like it at
Can
school, they're not gonna like it at church either. But
yeah.
What I say, if they're wearing it at school, they just as well be wearing it at church because
Yeah.
it keeps them consistent.
Hey,
So
can I
that's-
say something from the church or from the school standpoint with young kids? I'm at the elementary school.
Who is this, Heather?
Yes, I'm sorry. Yes,
Okay,
Heather.
that's okay. Uh-huh.
I think, I've got special needs kids all the way, most of wearing masks. I think I've got 2 that just cannot handle it sensory wise. I don't think you need to require it, but you know what? If they can wear them at school, they can wear them at church if they want to. And if they don't want to, a 2-year-old's not going to be a problem, especially since we've already gone to the standpoint of saying that we're going to be 6 feet apart in family groups. If we're already doing that, the mask issue isn't even an issue for these kids.
Yeah. And knowing most of the kids that go there, I mean, I can foresee them wearing them anyway,
Yeah.
just coming and
I mean,
wearing.
we might even
already
make
are
a
at school.
contest. Who has the best mask on
hey, that's a good idea.
contest?
Kind of like the chili cook-off.
Yeah,
Right.
give out an award.
So what's our plan to communicate this to the congregation then, Andrew?
I guess I'll be typing an email tomorrow. I was
Okay.
waiting to
And maybe
figure
put
out
it
what-
on Facebook?
Yep,
Facebook too,
we've
and-
been doing, we'll do the same means as we do. Nothing was really changed. Everyone knew that we're not meeting this week, so we're still confirmed for the 11th. The same things are required. I mean, so it might be even the same letter except for a few additions or a few subtractions. But yeah, I mean, I think this is very easy. The congregation
Okay.
already knows. We're
Andrew,
not using it.
So,
Yes, Kendra.
Andrew, do you want something to stand behind, or, I know Denise had said that. I mean,
I will be actually pulling out the old podium for the pastor. And that's what I'll be at instead of my normal on the floor spot. I don't know. I haven't been able to measure it because we've been having all these weddings. So I haven't been able to figure out where it's going to go and how wide it is and things like that.
or even a face shield, or, I mean,
Yes.
I think I know somebody.
I will have
who gets you a
obviously a
face shield.
mask on and a face shield.
I have a few face shields.
Somebody. Kendra.
Well, and personally, I told Andrew this, not the rest of you, and I think Lee may have expressed this too. I don't see anything wrong with having a video, video your sermon and you could do about anything except maybe the announcements by video if you felt.
And I appreciate that, Gene, and I did remember that. I am going to, my family will not be at church. I think they've accepted that, that I'm going to have to be there. And I think if we're going to reopen, I need to be there. But if there is ever a moment that I feel this is getting out of hand or the community is getting worse, not our community, but the COVID spread is getting worse, that might change. But right now, October 11th, I think I'm okay with that right now. I'm just trying to figure out how to preach with a mask on. I've never done that, so I might practice that. Practice yelling at my kids with a mask on and see how that feels.
So Andrew, if you need help, I have all sorts of resources for, well, they have what they call COVID cabanas, where people can go inside and see like their loved ones, and also those fiberglass barriers. I have resources that you could buy those from. So let me know if you need help with that.
I will do that. Thank you.
So are we ready?
This all comes down to flexibility. And we need to continually, whether we have a COVID infection or whatever situations in the community or in the church change, you got to go with the flow. You got to roll with the punches. And I think that's what we're doing here. If you have to get back up off the ground and do something different, you do it.
And I would say, thank you, Gene, because there's two things that, before I forget, the DS did just text. She said, regardless of what goes on, if anyone has COVID in your building, we have to shut down a minimum of 14 days. So if we have worship and someone ends up having COVID and they were in our building, we will have to, no ifs, ands, or buts, shut down for 2 weeks. So that's a thing from her.
Mm-hmm.
And I would ask, I understand that I am pretty much at a distant odd for most of you in terms about the reopening. But I
Can
am
I
not,
ask what medical expertise our DS has?
I'm sorry.
You just said our church has to close down for 14 days if one case is tested positive inside our church. What medical expertise does the DS have?
Well, I'm
Can
telling you. Go ahead.
Can I answer that, Heather? I think that's probably a CDC recommendation that if you are exposed, I mean, I know that's what we do here at Maple Heights. If somebody is exposed to somebody directly, they have to stay away for 14
not
days.
the whole church.
Say that again.
So when they are exposed, then they are quarantined, not the entire church.
Didn't you look at like if let's say there was a member that came and then developed symptoms and or developed COVID and was sitting, who they were sitting in front of and who they were sitting behind that would be the purpose of us signing up and knowing who's at church. Is that correct?
Right.
The point is for contact tracing. So everyone would be notified in a certain way that they were in contact with somebody that had COVID. This is not an option. I'm telling you right now from this, she said the mandate is if there is someone that has COVID in your church, you would have to shut down for 14 days.
Hey, Heather, my understanding is that's probably not coming from the DS, but rather from the conference itself.
Well, let's cross that bridge when we get to it. We've made a lot of progress tonight, so let's not get stuck on that if that's okay with everybody. Okay. Yeah. And I appreciate your comments, Heather.
And the second thing that I agree with Gene, like I said, I know I'm different. I have a different perspective of having people die from COVID, and I am more cautious. But I do agree that we have to be flexible, because I do think, and I think Jody would probably even echo this, there may be a time that we're going to have to shut down again, and we have to be honest and real with that.
Schools will. I've been saying this forever, that it's going to be off and on all year.
Yeah. So we have to remain, we have to be true to what we're called to do. And we have to remain flexible. And that may mean in December, and I just pulled December. I don't know, maybe January or whenever, we have to be flexible.
And Andrew, this is Jody, and I would agree with that. I think there's a real possibility that if we open, there may be a time that we would have to close. I'm not sure of the 14-day quarantine thing. And again, I agree with Denise. We've made a lot of progress. Let's move on and not beat a dead horse here. But I think this is something that we would have to revisit on a pretty regular basis. And if it gets to the point that we open and we have some increased numbers in our local area or members of our church, then I think we revisit that and then we make an additional decision at that point. I think that's all.
Thank you, Jody.
So if we are done with this discussion, are we ready to move on to the wedding discussion? It's number 6.
Ready.
Ready.
Okay.
Ready for the wedding.
So
Lee, do you wanna-
whose topic was that?
Lee?
Well, I think I might have got it on the agenda or ask Andrew to put it on there. It's my belief is if we're going to be opening the church and requiring masks and social distancing, if we can within the congregation, that we need to have the upcoming wedding follow the same protocols.
Agree.
Speaking to the DS's point of view, they have told many churches weddings and funerals should follow the same standards as it is for church. So that's what they have been telling other congregations. Obviously, when she says that, it's now 4 days before someone's wedding. I don't know if we can necessarily tell them they can't have but 50 people in the church.
I'm not trying to say that. I just think, I really think we, if we're going to require our congregation to have masks on, I think we need to require the attendees to the wedding to follow the same thing.
I agree. It's a gathering in the sanctuary and,
And I have told the bride for this weekend, I said, we might be requiring masks, and she was okay. I mean, so this is not a issue that's going to cause.
So you may kiss the mask.
You may kiss the mask.
So
Is that something you would be requiring their bridal party?
that's
their,
what I was just gonna ask.
Their pictures that they're gonna have their
Yeah,
photographer
That's
take.
what I was just about to say.
It's
Like,
gonna be on their wall for the years to come.
yeah,
bride and the
That would be
groom
a
wear
great
masks.
story for them to tell their grandkids. Look at
yeah, I
me.
would be so mad.
I would
be so
So
mad.
mad. I agree with Heather. Or Kendra. So mad.
I don't.
I think.
I would be so mad.
50
They
years
agree.
from now, you'd be glad to have that mask on for your wedding picture.
Never.
You just got to find the right
not
mask.
if
to make it
All I
look
know
good.
is I'm glad it's not my wedding. If the bride is okay with that, then it's fine.
Well, when I told her,
But
I told her the guest. I didn't tell her, but so
This
that's
is what happened in 2020.
yeah.
Tell your
I-
grandchildren.
Yeah,
I told her-
I can't agree with that. I guess if it's a moot point if the bride doesn't care, but if the bride does care, and I don't even remember whose wedding this is.
This would be
Um,
Caleb Little and Cooper Wintersheet.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
I had told her that the guest, I didn't tell her she had to, but if the administrative council says everybody has to wear a mask,
I don't agree with that. I won't vote on that.
I would not. I would be with Kendra on that one.
I think since we just had a wedding this
Yeah.
last Saturday and there wasn't any requirement giving to the families, I
Yeah,
don't see how you can change the rule for this
I don't
Saturday.
think so either.
Now,
And
if you
I'm
want to
Yeah, I
change-
think we can. I think we can.
Well, I think we've
But-
set a
so
precedent.
what's the
right
purpose
now.
for changing the
You can
rule
always
though?
Change it down the road, but I don't see how you can change it for within 7 days.
Well, we've already
I mean-
agreed that we're already agreed that we're not going to host any more weddings till this is over, right? We've already said that.
no, we
So
haven't.
this,
Who said that?
I
No,
thought
we
we did.
Who said
No,
that?
we said when we were talking about the opening that nothing was going to be allowed right now, except for the preschool latchkey, when we were talking about the building being open. But that wasn't forever, unless that's how you took it.
No, I didn't mean forever, but I mean, as long as there's a hazard out there, we weren't going to have any more weddings, I thought.
I mean, I think, not.
We'd had these two that were already scheduled.
Yeah.
That was
But
my
after
understanding, that there would be no more weddings.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's what I
scheduled.
thought.
So,
Yeah. That was my understanding.
Yeah, me too.
yeah.
So-
That's what I thought we voted on.
So I guess the question for me, and I'm not taking over Denise's job, but so are we making a ruling that we're not having any weddings during the COVID crisis? Because what does that mean? And how long is that?
Well, and that was quite a while ago. I think
Yeah.
that was probably back in May or
Yeah,
that we discussed that. So I think that's something that needs to just be revisited.
yeah.
But I know back in May, I thought that was kind of what we had intended.
So this is why we work.
Have we had
together.
any other inquiries about weddings at our church?
No.
No.
Not that I know of, and I would never get married in 2020. It's not a good year.
Yeah. It's pretty, yeah, it's probably
Oh,
not.
And
So
I
what-
want to say, because I know there's some, I could see on the camera, this decision has nothing to do with the people getting married. We as administrative council, we did not think about the ramifications. I think we said, let these people get married that have already done it, and we didn't think of the details. So I know, Elizabeth, this is not personal. This is nothing about your family. And Lee, like I said, Lee had talked to me that some people were watching the live stream and were very upset about the
Yes.
concept of why we would allow a wedding not to have a requirement, but we were having all these requirements. This is not personal, and I do not want you to feel that way. And so looking back, I think what Lee is trying to say is, now that we know that that was a potential issue and caused a lot of concern from people, can we put in a way to make sure we are basically practicing what we're preaching? If we're going to make the church go through the requirements of putting on a mask, I would be okay saying the guest. The bridal party, I'm not saying we have to. I will have a mask on because I have 3 kids that are compromised immune. I may take it off for a quick second for a picture, but during the service, I will have a mask on. But that's because that's my personal choice of health. I am okay if that's what you're saying. Let's just put it on the guest. But I don't know if we can go back and tell a wedding party 4 days, you got to cut your numbers down. You have to do this. You have to do
No,
that.
we
I
can't
think
do
the
that.
mask, I think, is very doable, and she was very okay with that. But again, I said it in the perspective of your guest. So if it is the will of administrative council that everybody, the wedding party and everything else have a mask on, I will say that. But I don't know. I don't know. I as someone that just got married 6 years ago, the week of a wedding is very stressful, and a lot of changes are not, that you don't want to put a bunch of changes. But I do agree, we have to be good representation for the church. So
I think
So
we
does
should have
anyone
made
want-
that decision a long time ago. I mean, I think if you're gonna, I don't think you can change the rules now.
You're-
I think,
Paul, we should have made that decision a long time ago. And we
I
made a
know,
mistake.
and
We
so
made a
I
mistake.
don't think you can go to this bride and say, well, you have to do this and you have to do that. I think we should, if we wanted that, we should have done it a long time ago.
We should have. I know, but why make a mistake a second time?
I don't think I think it's very unfair to the party that's having the wedding this Saturday. to
I do
change
too.
Oh, yeah, we can't do that.
Contact them on Wednesday and say, you've got to do this, you've got to do that.
Yeah,
It's very unfair.
Okay, let me,
Go
I
back
don't think
and-
it should be the wedding party, but the guests, I really think should.
I don't think we can change that.
I don't either.
actually, we can. It's not a question of
should.
can we. We can.
We
It
can,
is
but I
our
don't think
voting.
we should.
I agree. I just think that the people that are coming to the wedding, if they should wear masks, but I don't think we can just tell them now at this point that they have to.
Okay, we're arguing a case that the bride is already okay with her guest wearing masks. I think we're missing back to that. I've already told her that would probably happen, and she was perfectly okay with it.
But I've got nothing
Well,
else.
if that's the case, then let's move on and go to the next,
Yes, if
discussion.
nobody wants to bring forth a motion on anything of this, well, okay, then we'll go on to financials. Financial picture, number 7, Mary Ann.
Okay, as of today, the balance in the checking account was $29,524, which is almost exactly the same as what it was at the end of August. That has the payroll for tomorrow has been taken out, which was about, it's close to $7,000. As of August 31st, which is the most recent financials I have, our giving is down almost $17,000 from last year. Wanting to bring good news here, but that's just the way it is. You know, and from that, looking at projecting through the end of the year, I mean, we could be down $25,000 by the end of the year. Who knows? But I know that the last 2 Sundays, our offerings, I mean, week, our offerings have been substantially lower. This is counting online offerings. And of course, we didn't have church this Sunday, but like for the September 22nd week, the offering total was 1,820. And then this week, without having church on Sunday, the offering was 1,327. So, and again, financially wise, I think that's one reason too, we need to get back to church, in the church if we can, for the community, for the members to get back to church. But I think, again, that's everyone's personal choice. But so that's all I have on the finances.
Okay, thank you, Mary Ann. Do we have anything else?
I just want to end this meeting thanking you again. Thank you all. It has been, wow, it has been a long time. It has been a long period and a lot of stress and a lot of tensions, a lot of headaches, a lot of emails. Thank you. You are so important to us, the community here. Your wisdom is needed. And without you, I don't know how we would have made it thus far. And I mean that from the bottom of my heart. Every single one of you are here for a reason, and it is your wisdom that has guided us to get here thus far. I love all of you, even though sometimes we don't always agree. We are one unified church, and we are better because of your leadership. So commend yourselves. Give yourself a pat on the back. If you are an alcohol drinker, drink a beer tonight. If you are a wine drinker, drink a wine. If you're a whiskey, just take a shot. Whatever you do.
One of each.
One of each, and not too much. Moderation is key. But whatever you are, thank you. You are.
That
awesome.
is moderation.
Yeah, you are.
Andrew,
Awesome.
thank you too, Andrew. I mean, you know, from us as Ad Cancel, SPRC, thank you as well. You've been through the ringer as well, and hopefully now the ringer is calming down. So
yes, on to bigger and better days.
I agree with that.
Can I
Thanks,
ask one more
Andrew.
thing?
Thank you.
Yeah, one more thing. Do we want to start meeting now once a month instead of twice a month like we have been? And when do you want our next?
Well,
Next
because we have to do charge conference, Mary Ann, you're good with remembering my numbers. When is everything? I have to turn anything November something, right? November 5th?
November 2nd, I believe it's November 2nd.
So we need to have a meeting before that to approve what I send, if I believe right.
Correct, right.
Yeah.
I'm looking here right now. I have finance is going to meet on October 21st.
Okay, and SPRC has already done theirs. I am in the midst, I have paused on charge conference forms, but I would say we need to meet sometime in October because we have to go into executive session for our charge conference, since we are not allowed to do the normal charge conference.
4 weeks from today would be the 27th. So that would be the Tuesday after the Finance Committee meets and approves the 2021 budget.
And I know that volleyball may not be in session or whatever, but I just know that like Tuesdays are volleyball nights, you know, and I just know that it's hard for Denise or Heather and Jody, but I think volleyball season would be over then. I just know that hopefully, maybe, I don't know, basketball season will be occurring. I don't know. I just throwing it out there.
Okay, so refresh my mind. What is on Mondays? Is there any activities? Is that like a JV or a football or whatever?
I will say
Mondays are
Mostly
middle school volleyball and basketball games, Mondays and Thursdays, and then high school volleyball games, and then eventually high school basketball games will be Tuesdays, Fridays. So
Wednesday? How about a Wednesday? I didn't hear a Wednesday in there.
We can hit
Another option is my old church, my previous church. We did ad councils on Sundays, which I find to be more holy because we've just had our fill of worship. And then in the evening, we meet for ad council. So there's never any arguments. We're still in that holy high. How's that?
Is there football on Sundays?
Oh, I forgot about the Chiefs. Oh, how could I
And
forget about the
Sundays are just your reorganization, like trying to prepare for the week. I don't,
Do the laundry. Oh yeah. Yeah.
I wouldn't mind Wednesday evenings. That's kind of traditional church activity anyway.
yeah, yeah.
Okay, so let's pick a date.
for the
So how
20
about 28th, Wednesday the 28th?
Wednesday, the 28th.
6 o'clock still good?
That it won't work for me, but don't let me stop that. So
What is
I can do the
7 o'clock
21st,
for
but
you?
not the 28th.
What time is your thing, Marianne?
Okay, our meeting is at 6 o'clock on the 21st.
So if we did at 7, could
Can
we
do
do
7 on the 21st.
first? Or how about 7:30? Because you got to do budget. So 7:30? Could that work for everyone?
7:30.
Wednesday, the 21st at 7:30?
Sounds good.
Awesome.
Yes.
And that should not be in effect against any other activities, right? All my parents.
My
that
only
are-
question being
Dance?
7:30, is it gonna take 2 hours? I'm so sorry if that sounds bad, but I just, yeah, kids, little kids and bedtime and stuff. I just
Okay, 7.
pushing it. Yeah,
And can we do 7?
7,
Yeah.
okay.
7 would work.
7 o'clock.
Okay.
Okay, 7 o'clock on the 21st. I hope I hear a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Now,
Moved by Lee, seconded by
I'll move.
Kendra,
Kendra. Okay, we are adjourned. Thank you, everybody.
okay, before you all get off.